Welcome back to the Haven Universal Broadcasting Service. I'm your host, Ollie Ashwood. On today's news, it's been quite some time since the Empire's collapse, and I've been eagerly talking to all of the state leaders to find out what's been happening in all their regions of Haven now that the Empire has gone. I've even managed to get a little insight into the Lorent people and what they have been up to since their formation of the Horde. Let's kick things off with the people who are very eagerly hosting peace summits and trying to bring about a new age for Haven, the Hearthstone Yimul. Now, we all know pronunciation is not something we sponsor or support here in the hub, so I do apologize in advance, but we shall just call you Hearthstone. Now, Hearthstone's main goals during the formation and collapse of the Empire was really to make the Hearthstone union between Boldarov, Sanctuary, and the new nation of Tuala. Now, the three nations have now formed a giant union of sorts between the three of them, and really taken on a very key playing role in the new Haven world. Currently, the key goal of the Hearthstone Union is to ensure peace and prosperity on the continent of Haven. They aim to safeguard it and indeed revive the cultures and maintain many of the traditions whilst learning from the mistakes of the past. They are constantly striving towards the future and furthering of friendships and cooperation on the continent. What a lovely goal. Next up is new Mithusu, because old Mithusu was apparently boring. Now, since the Empire's collapse, they have joined the Union of Haven to ensure the continuation of their daily lives. They have gained a little bit of land since the collapse, and a lot of it was old imperial land, which has been brought out and to aid in their expansion. They are currently aiming to increase the population of their cities. They are finishing the building of new towns, and just generally working towards creating more events to encourage the locals of each of their nations. A very friendly and happy place, I'm sure. Following new Mithusu, there's old Aurora. As you can imagine, Aurora has been quite a key player, as always, within the continent of Haven. They have negotiated and signed the Golden Ring of Haven between multiple nations to ensure the safety from outsiders. They have received a small sliver of the desert in the northern territories of what was Mithusu, to have all of their land maintained and connected, besides, none of it really, apparently. I do apologize, the statement given was not entirely correct there. And also, keeping the peace on Haven. Their key goals, as always, is the protection of their interests, regionally and internationally, as I do know they have their own little islands off in other places as well. Next up is Alokrad. Pre-warning, not a lot to say about Alokrad, because they're just generally chilling. Alokrad have signed non-aggression pacts with some of their neighbours. They haven't proceeded to grow during this time, and their current goals are to improve their military, to help with the defence of Haven, and improve their population. Little Alokrad things, but a lovely little nation they are. Next up, well, it's the messy bunch. It's the former Chevkri states. Now, this message was left to us by Chid, so any bias I am happy to discuss with any fallen states and have a new video come out in the future should anyone deem these to be wrong. Now, the first action of Chevkri after the Empire dissolved was to join the Union of Haven, and they were actually some of the first to leave Uldarash, if I understand correctly. Chevkri did unfortunately collapse, as many have seen upon the map, but before that they did gain some new land, and have now obviously ceded that off to the succeeding states. Now, every state has their own different beliefs, but apparently each simply want to continue to grow and maybe one day, who knows, rejoin a better and more organized Chevkri. I don't see that happening personally, but it would be an interesting story to tell, I'm very sure. Next up is Savernia, and I have totally no bias in saying this, but Savernia is doing pretty well at the moment. Their first action since leaving the Empire was really just to establish themselves as a fully independent kingdom, something Savernia's not really had to do in the past, and it was our first really attempt outside of the minor hiccup during the December period. Savernia has seen minor growth in their towns. Obviously, the Tamji area has remained with them since the collapse of the Empire. There has been developments out in the east, and Hazel has been coronated since. The Savernian people continue to strive and actually have their 1 year anniversary coming up soon. So their goals currently are rebuilding and repopulating some of the older towns, fixing up their military, and generally making friends with all their neighbors in Haven to ensure the defense of the nations and continued independence of all the realms around Haven. Potentially a bit of a surprise entry to some of you who haven't seen them or heard of them before, but I have decided to include the Lorent as a part of this analysis. Now, whilst they weren't a part of the Empire, they have got a slimmer of land on the Haven continent, and I was keen just to have a conversation with them, as they are some of our biggest, closest neighbours. Now, during the Empire's dissolution, they obviously had to make some key decisions. They haven't lost any of their land or anything, and they have only conceded to grow, from my understanding. They are looking for allies within Uldarash, since Lorent didn't have the best relations with the former nation. They have no new land gained from the Uldarash, but they are obviously growing outside of it, and their current goals are to build and organize more events around their nation, and hopefully have a few more interactions with some of the characters around Haven. Now, unfortunately, I haven't heard anything back from some of the other states of Union Haven or Montroig, or even Alfheim, unfortunately, but I hope to hear back from them soon. If I do, I will create a follow-up video to include more about the states of the Empire and how it has changed. In other news, the weather maintains its normality at the moment. We are dreading the Christmas and Halloween periods coming back up again soon, as I'm sure that will return some unwanted features. We have had a random experience of phantoms, but I am happy to say that they seem to have disappeared less now. But we will obviously keep you reported on all news changes as and when it happens. That's all we've got time for today, folks. Thank you for tuning in to the Haven Universal Broadcasting Service. I hope that you come back to the hubs in the future and we have more news to report on that's maybe a little bit more interesting. However, if there's anything in particular you would like to see a news report on, please leave a request in the comments, as we're more than happy to take suggestions. And I'm also looking for fellow broadcasting presenters, so if anyone feels they have the voice and the knack for radio, please do get in touch, as I really don't have the voice to continue doing these for too much longer. Have a nice day.